The Midland Shrine is about 75 acres in size. Besides the church building itself, at the back is the lookout. From there, you can have a charming panoramic view of the whole town. Most importantly, you could see the river on which the Jesuits canoed from Quebec to Midland, Ontario. The voyage from France to Canada took 3 months. After they reached Montreal, Quebec, they planned to canoe via the St. Lawrence River to Ontario. Then they found out that the St. Lawrence River was in Iroquois territory. They had to detour and travel the Ottawa River through its rapids and dangerous torrents. But the Jesuits did not give up and insisted to complete their missionary journey. Around the church are statues of Jesus, Mary, and more than a dozen saints. The 8 martyrs spent a total of 16 years, from 1633 to 1649, evangelizing in Canada. In fact, from the very beginning, they encountered many setbacks and obstacles before they were eventually accepted by the Huron people. 2 Jesuits with the most well-known deeds are Saint Jean de Brébeuf and Saint Isaac Jogues. Brébeuf came to Midland as a missionary in 1626. He was the first Jesuit who came to this area. In order to better understand the Huron culture, Brébeuf spent 2 years to learn the Huron language and to familiarize himself with local customs. In 1639, Brébeuf decided to take up residence with the Wendat in Sainte-Marie, 8 kilometers from the church, until March 16, 1649, when the Iroquois raided the village of Wendat, captured Brébeuf with another Jesuit, Gabriel Lalemant, and tortured them savagely.
This torture is the most well-known torture, most brutal torture for any Catholic martyr. Brébeuf and Lalemant were tied to the posts of the church that had been constructed at St. Ignace. They were stripped naked. Their flesh was torn off in chunks to be consumed by the Iroquois. Their fingernails were pulled out, digits were cut off, and hot coals were placed in their eyes and in any open sore. There was a mockery of baptism. They would boil hot water and pour it over the martyrs. They would also rest flaming hot tomahawks on their chests in a chain, so that way when they leaned forward, they couldn't get relief from the back, and if they leaned back, they couldn't get relief from the front. These men were tortured for 17 hours, and upon expiring, their heart was cut out, and parts of the heart were consumed by the Iroquois.
In the face of such brutal torture, Brébeuf and Lalemant remained faithful to God and were fearless. Rather, they comforted the Wendat who were crying for them. Though their tongues were cut off by the Iroquois, Brébeuf and Lalemant continued to pray for peace. They prayed unceasingly until the Iroquois severed Brébeuf's lower jaw. That did not stop Brébeuf. He prayed with his eyes until he took his last breath. These 2 saints' martyrdoms was recorded by the Wendat who escaped successfully. Though Brébeuf and Lalemant sacrificed their lives for God, they successfully sowed the seeds of Catholic faith in North America. Their faith in God and persistence will be honored through the ages.
This is now a place of prayer and a place of peace, a place of healing and reconciliation. So many people come because they know it's a sacred place. Saints lived here. They walked this hill where the church is.
St. Isaac Jogues' statue is easily recognizable. Why? Because he has low index fingers that come from the racial contention between the Mohawk and the Huron people.
In early 1640, Isaac was unfortunately captured by the Iroquois and Mohawks and was brought to New York State's Orisville. He was savagely tortured for almost 2 years. The Mohawks knew that to consecrate the Eucharist during Mass, Isaac had to use his index fingers. So they cut off both of Isaac's index fingers with a clamshell. Fortunately, with the help of some Dutch merchants, Isaac successfully escaped to France for 3 years. Determined to complete his missionary work, Isaac insisted to return to Canada. In the end, on October 18, 1646, He died after being hit on the head by a tomahawk. He was martyred for his missionary work. Isaac's unfaltering faith and his desire to bring peace to the Huron people are honored for generations to come. In 1930, Pope Pius XI canonized the 8 martyrs as saints. Later, in September 1984, Pope John Paul II came to Canada and visited the Midland Shrine. On that day, 150,000 Catholics gathered here, and the Pope prayed for the martyrs in front of the skull of Saint Jean de Brébeuf. These 8 martyrs are also Canada's patron saints.